Hello, amazing, gorgeous you. Welcome to the podcast. Today, we're going to talk to Vanessa Hunt, who is a blogger, an author, and has a beautiful social media platform. And she talks about how to make your home a haven, but she also talks about how to find more belonging and more peace in your heart, which I think is so fantastic, and the way it overlaps with my work as a psychologist. So we have a really neat discussion about how to find more peace and belonging in your soul, as well as how to find that more and create that more in your home. Have you felt left out? Have you felt like you're on the outside looking in? Well, so have Vanessa and I, and we will talk about how to overcome that and even how to be part of the solution for creating more community and belonging in your world, internal and external. I love you, my friend. Enjoy the podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Whole Life Podcast Show. I'm Dr. Barbara Lowe, licensed psychologist, somatic experiencing practitioner, and lay minister. And I am so excited because we have Vanessa Hunt. Can you think gorgeous platform? Yes, gorgeous platform at the picket fence. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here with you today.
I love even your home there, and your shirt even matches your beautiful, luscious kind of whitewash platform. So pretty.
Well, that wasn't planned at all. So
I actually do.
Throw on.
I actually do try to dress on brand a little bit. So, like, my brand is pink and green, and look, I am so dressed on brand.
I love it. I love it.
For those of you who are not on YouTube and are listening to the podcast, I'm wearing a pink sweater and a green shirt. So Dr. Barbara on brand.
That's right.
Well, Vanessa, tell us about what you're doing now. And then, as you know, we like to do here in the Whole Life Tribe, we're going to take a deep dive into the not so pretty. But first, we want to hear about the pretty.
Okay, well, my desire is for women to experience what it's like to have a home and a heart that's filled with peace. And I truly believe that that has nothing to do with perfection, but I believe that there are things we can do in our, I believe that there are things we can do in our lives and in our homes, and that will have them be havens of peace for ourselves and for anybody who lives with us. I believe that if our hearts are chaotic, our homes are chaotic. And if our homes are chaotic, our hearts are chaotic, and they're very much intertwined. And so my desire is to help people experience what it's like to have peace in both those areas and the freedom really that comes from that. So, yeah.
This is so cool because I was just editing chapter 1 of my Hearts Returning Home book. I have a Hearts Returning Home course, and it is about restoring the heart home and making it lovely and beautiful, and a sense of belonging, a sense of security, a sense of peace. Oh my gosh. So isn't that
chills?
Cool?
I just got chills. Yes, I love that. Yes.
So you are helping women on the outside to help their insides, and I'm helping women straight up on the inside. Like, I'm
Absolutely.
Let me go in there. Let's do some work.
Yes, exactly.
And
yes.
I was just reading that, we're created in God's image. We're created fearfully and wonderfully in his image, but the abuses of life, we're dilapidated from it. We are weathered, we're worn, but those good foundations are there. And so we work to restore that in our heart.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And then that's what comes out. And then the overflow of that goes into every other area of our life, and particularly in our homes, because we spend so much time in our homes. So yeah, they're so connected.
You know what's funny is right now I have a 17-year-old. I probably need your help right now in my kitchen because my 17-year-old, he's a rising senior, and he is he likes to prepare his own food. He's, I think he's going to go into health and fitness, either that or athletics. He's really good at soccer. But anyway, he's very specific about what he wants in his food. So I just give him the credit card, let him go grocery shopping. He's always cooking. Occasionally, he'll even cook like his protein pancakes
Nice.
for me. But
Nice.
we hate going in the kitchen now because it's like become his kitchen. So we avoid the kitchen.
Yes.
Oh, it's funny. It's funny.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason that my camera's flipped towards my family room and not my kitchen right now, because on the other side is dishes in the sink, and my 16-year-old is going to be emptying the dishwasher in a little bit. So,
Yes. Can we say again, not
woo-woo.
perfect?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So you have this beautiful platform and you help women to find peace in their hearts and peace in their homes, but you didn't always feel that yummy peace, did you?
No, I didn't. We moved around a lot growing up. My dad was pastoring for a while and then left doing that full time, but we moved a lot. And my deepest desire was to have roots somewhere. And I always wanted that experience of people who knew me and knew me well. And I never had that. Like, I don't have people currently in my life, in my day-to-day life, who knew me when I was young.
Mm.
And so other than my parents and everything, but I don't have that experience. And so I really longed for that. And at the same time, it gave me this awareness of what it's like to be on the outside. And so I'm always looking for the people who maybe need to be folded in. And I feel like God just called me to that and allowed me to know what it was like to be in that position so that I could then turn around and provide that for other people. So I feel like that's my heart, and that's really what I want to do with my community, whether it's in person or online, that everybody feels like they belong somewhere and that they're seen and known. And so that has led me also to be thrilled that I've lived in the same city for 20 years now, and yet I still have that piece of myself that feels like I don't necessarily belong here. And that's okay. I've come to just be okay with that, because it's that thing that propels me towards watching and looking for somebody who doesn't fit and wants to belong.
You are so my sister from another platform, because yeah, my whole message, or part of my message, is God is using misfits and outcasts to be the next big thing. And he has always called
Mm-hmm.
misfits and outcasts to be the next big thing. And so I love gathering together the misfits and outcasts, me being
Mm-hmm.
definitely a misfit and outcast with the way that I was raised, and
Mm-hmm.
bringing them in and empowering them and being this whole tribe, this whole life tribe together. I love that.
Yeah. And I think we all, I mean, no matter what people see on the outside, I think we all have that in us of wanting to belong and wanting to be known, and also to know. Like, I believe that those go hand in hand, knowing and being known. And that
Yes.
means that you have to be willing to step out and put yourself out there, which is very hard to do, especially if you've been burned. And so you have to be willing to know others in order to be known as well. And so it involves this constant tension of giving and taking. And oftentimes I have found a lot of it revolves around me doing more of the giving than the taking. And I've come to just be at peace with that, and feel like that's what God's called me to. So
That's
yeah.
beautiful. If I could even tell you how many times belonging is on this first page of this
Yes.
draft I'm editing right now. Belonging
Yeah.
is so key. It's what we
Mm-hmm.
long for, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about, what do I want on my ice cream sundae? Scoops of peace and belonging. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes,
Right? Because
yes.
it's
And
used.
I think that's like so lacking in our culture today. And I think we're seeing results of that, and not feeling like we belong to something, and that we belong to something bigger than ourselves. And I just think that that's integral to feeling that peace and being able to go out and share that with the world is, if we're solid in who we are and whose we are, then we're able to go out and expand upon that.
Yes. Yes, and it can't be just us and Jesus. I sometimes I meet people, and to be honest, I used to be a little bit just me and Jesus, but underneath
Mhm.
all that was a root of rejection and abandonment where I was really only going to let people in so far. And we
Mhm.
have to connect with people. We don't need to
Mhm.
merge with them,
Right.
but we shouldn't be like this either. It should be a connection where we're still holding on to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about.
And I have said it before, in my communities, that I didn't find my really deep heart soul friendships until I was in my 30s. I'm in my 40s now, and sometimes it takes a long time to find that. And I'm grateful that I have 2 or 3 women in my life who are like that for me, but yet that I'm still called to have a community beyond that and not just sit in that. And my friends are also the same, in that manner, where we don't like only have to be together. And I think that if everybody would take that mentality a little bit more, that maybe more people would feel folded in. When I go to church and I'm standing in the lobby, I might see one of my closest friends and I might say hi to her, but we have a friendship outside of that lobby. And so that means on that morning that it's okay for us to invest in other people and have other people feel folded in, because there's security in our friendship. And so we don't need to only be together, if that makes sense. And
Ah,
so I think if everybody would kind of take that philosophy a little bit more, then maybe, and that doesn't mean that every person I talk to is going to be my best friend, but maybe that morning they'll feel really welcomed and they'll come back again.
I love
So
that. Yes. People are hungry for this. So, not belonging really hurts. Feeling like you're on the
mhm.
outside looking in really hurts. Would you be willing to tell us about a time where you really felt like you were on the outside looking in and share with us?
Yeah, I mean, just one time. I mean, there's like countless times, but and the funny thing is I now have a daughter who's in middle school, and I say to her when she has these experiences of not feeling like she's fitting in or being included, I say to her, the skills that we're talking about you learning now are skills you're going to need even as a grown-up woman, because I'm experiencing things as a 43-year-old woman that I experienced as a 12-year-old girl. And so they're just skills that and things that happen throughout the course of our lives, and that's unfortunate, but it's the way it is. But there's one vivid memory that I have in middle school, and my parents moved me to a new state right before I started middle school. So like literally the worst time you could possibly. And then they moved me again right before I started high school. Like, oh, I'm like a walking miracle at this point. So but so like horrible
Ouch.
times to move girls especially. And I was I struggled to find friendships, and I was very aware of not being included. And thank the Lord that this was back in the day before social media, because it would have been so much worse. But one of the gals who lived in my neighborhood and who was in my class at school had a party, and I knew I wasn't invited, but like I could handle that. But because she lived in my neighborhood, she and the girls decided that they were going to go walking around the neighborhood together. And they walked right in front of my house and kind of like planted themselves out in the street there. And so it was so obvious. It wasn't just a slight of not being invited. It was, we're going to parade ourselves around and like remind you that you're not a part of this. And that just so sticks in my memory of the pointedness of doing that. And I wished I'd understood at that age that it was a them issue and not a me issue. But I've had that experience repeated, not in so many different forms, and I had to learn how to really figure out whether it was me or them, and come to understand the deep insecurities that cause somebody to do stuff like that.
Yes. Yes.
So I kind of made up my mind from that point on that I wasn't going to do that to anybody. And I didn't want anybody to feel excluded. Even if I couldn't have a party and include everybody, that I would never parade it in front of them. And
Yes.
so it's really just, translated into every area of my life. So, yeah.
How has the Lord met you personally in this area of feeling belonging?
Yeah, I feel like he he has so flipped around my ability to internalize that, and I've learned that it's okay to feel the sting of that moment. Like, you're never going to not feel hurt by that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't want to be so cold and callous that I didn't feel the sting of that in that moment.
Mhm.
But it's about what I do with that from there on out that becomes a me issue. So it might start as a them issue, but then what I do with it becomes a me issue. So I can decide whether then, like, what their insecurity and my insecurity are going to meet and what happens when they meet. And so, am I going to be able to pour grace on them and forgiveness on them? And knowing where they're coming from is a place of sadness and insecurity,
Mhm.
and I can offer that. That doesn't make me a doormat. I'm not going to, like, just continue to put myself in a position where that I'm mistreated, but I can offer that grace and to pray for them. I have found that you can't be angry for somebody and be praying for them at the same time. Like, it just doesn't jive. And so I pray for them, and it's been an amazing work of the Lord in my heart that he's allowed me to actually feel affection for people that I don't even really like. So it's like this incredible thing where it's not from you, that you can actually feel love and affection for somebody that you really wouldn't even choose to spend much time with.
Yeah.
And so, but that's been a long process for me.
Yes. And have you continued to experience it sometimes in adulthood?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a common thread through life. And I hear it from so many other women, and women who you would think have it all together and would never experience that. And it's just, there's something that we do to each other, and it's so heartbreaking. And yet it stems from all these deep, deep issues that haven't been resolved.
Yeah, sometimes the bigger your platform gets, the harder it is to feel like you belong just for who you are,
Yeah. And
right?
you make
Like,
yourself a bigger target too. And
yes,
so,
yes. Yes, I have the sweetest staff. I own Greenleaf Psychological and Support Services. So I have a staff of
mhm,
about 15 and they are so sweet. And I hire so carefully for
yes.
clinical skill and for character and fit.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
but I was in a meeting the other day and I was telling some jokes and everyone was laughing and the thought occurred to me, I'm the boss, so I might not be that funny. They might be laughing at me
The
because
courtesy laugh.
it's me. And my husband helps out with the business some, and he happened to be in that meeting. And I mentioned that to him, and he says it's probably both. Honestly, it
I'm
was
sure
funny, but they
I'm
feel
sure
like,
you're funny.
oh,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
belonging. So, do you have some scriptures that are go to for you, or that really have been part of your foundation as far as feeling a sense of belonging, conveying a sense of belonging? Some of your favorite.
Yeah, my favorite, and maybe this doesn't correlate to belonging per se, but it's that in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And it's such a reminder that, like, the one thing we're guaranteed in this world is trouble and heartache. We're never promised that we will feel like we fit in here, and we're really not supposed to feel like we fit in here. And that he's overcome that, and that ultimately my belonging is with him, and that I'm supposed to hold lightly the things of this world. And so, that's just always such a comfort to me that he's overcome all of this. And the one thing I've also learned is the real meaning of what it is to heap coals on somebody. And I really
Can you
dug.
explain that for people who aren't familiar
So yes,
with
so
that
I really,
scripture?
like, was honestly always fascinated by that scripture that we are supposed to heap coals on someone's head. And I was like, what does that mean? And so one time I really dug deep and researched it. And in biblical times, coals are what kept your household running, right? You had to have a fire going all the time. And so if your neighbor let their coals run out, they would come and ask you to borrow them. And you wouldn't just give them one, you would heap lavishly on them. And because you had kept yours going. And so I always got this picture of somebody who was so hurting inside and hardened that they let their coals burn out. And that when they come to you and their response to you is maybe not great, but they need you to lavish that on them. And so even though I could say, well, that's your fault that you let your coals burn out, that's on you. Like, I kept mine going. My heart is fine. I'm doing great. But like, I'm called to lavish that on them. And so that really helped me understand what it's like to love somebody who's maybe you feel is undeserving of it, of your
Yes.
grace and your love and you extending kindness to them. So anyway, I'm kind of a
Yes.
commentary nerd, so I like to dig deep behind passages of scripture and stuff like that.
I
So
love that too. I love going through my favorite verses or a verse that I'm on or a
hmm
chapter storyline that I'm on in the word and looking at the Greek or Hebrew.
yeah.
And it sometimes it feels like, oh my gosh, I've been living in this little cardboard box and there's this whole world in
hmm
the word outside of it. So good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, for those of you who are listening who are not familiar with the scripture that we were just talking about, I forget where it lives, but it basically says, "Be kind to those who persecute you, and in so
hmm
doing, you will heap burning coals on their head." So,
hmm
it's
hmm
about being good to those who persecute you. And another scripture that comes to mind as you're talking about having tribulation in this world, Jesus said, if you give up father, mother, etc., these things that are important to you, houses, you will get them back in this world. You will get
hmm hmm
you'll get blessing in this world in those areas with persecution.
Yeah,
Right. So there's always that
absolutely.
trouble that's always there. So anytime we give up something for the Lord, we're going to know we're going to get something greater in relationship with Him, in a sense of belonging with Him, and even
Yeah.
in some of the things that we're going to experience in this world. But we're going to be persecuted for our faith from time to time, and we have to be willing
Yeah.
to pick up our cross. And to bring this home to belonging, the reason we're able to do that is because we have such a full heart of love and belonging because of what He has done for us that we can do that we can endure that.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, it really is the overflow of that we then extend to others. And so, I don't know why we're surprised that we have trouble in this world. Like, I have short-term memory when it comes to God's goodness, I think, because I'm always surprised, like, what? Like, why am I going through this? Or why do I have this recurring thing in my life? And it's just that thing that we're promised that we're going to have that.
Yeah.
And that's again why we hold the things of this earth lightly.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes we say, why me? But a way to turn that around that I've heard folks talk about near and dear to me is, why not me?
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yes,
And
absolutely.
more, God, what are you doing it through this?
Mhm,
And how do you want me to fight this or submit to this? Or, what
mhm.
is the word? What is the word saying? Okay.
And to learn to be grateful for the stuff.
Yes.
Like, I've really learned to be grateful for the things. There are things that were so painful and so hard, but I wouldn't trade them for anything in the world because of where they brought me and how they've changed me. And the things that were hard revealed things that really needed to be worked on and honestly would not have been revealed if I hadn't walked through those really difficult seasons. So,
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the people who God called to love me most, many of them rejected me very badly or
mm,
abandoned me.
mm,
And I have
mhm.
to honestly say, I am what I am because of that.
Yeah.
In a good way. I believe we can choose to be bitter or better. And
Mhm.
I think you and I are of the ilk that we encourage women, hey, make a choice, press
Yeah.
forward, and turn this into your calling. And one of the things I go through in my course is teach. I have people at the end of the course look at what they've been through, these traumas and hurts and losses, and look at how that's tied into their passions and their callings. And I love your story because your sense of not having a home and not having a sense
Mhm.
of belonging outside of your immediate family, but the sense of not having roots has caused you to enter into your purpose of helping other families, women, to root into relationship and into their home and into their communities. So
Mhm.
beautiful.
Absolutely. And I believe that God takes our natural giftings and then we get these added layers of experiences that really take it to the next level. So, there are things that that I've been through in my life that perhaps I wouldn't have ever realized, like, oh, this has actually turned into something that is a gift. And I'm called to use that then to turn around and encourage others and minister to others. And so if I hadn't walked through that, I don't know that if I would have ever been able to do that. And so, I believe that we have these natural tendencies and personalities and inclinations, but when they're coupled with these experiences for us, that's when the magic starts to happen, I think. So, yeah.
So good. So good. How do we have more peace in our home? Let's get into, could you give us 3 tools,
Sure.
either from your book or your website that you love to teach on?
Sure. I just truly believe that we all have a peace personality. I believe that we all, again, have these natural inclinations to either be controlling, like I call that the peace imposter. So somebody who's like a controlling perfectionist. And that was me, where I felt like if I could just control everything, then it would all be okay, which is laughable. But, and then there's the people that I call the agitators, where they are so overwhelmed and so running behind all the time, just constantly in a state of, I can't have anybody in my home because it's a disaster, and everybody senses the chaos. And then I like to think of the peace protector as the balance between those two. And so that should be our goal, is to work to that place. And that means that we learn to do things in our home that protect the peace and balance out the extreme sides. So for example, I encourage people to recognize that what you do before you leave your home affects how you feel when you come back in. Oh. So as you're leaving your home, take a few minutes in the spaces that you see right when you walk back through the door. Have those spaces be peaceful and calm. So for me, that means that I see my family room and my kitchen when I walk back through the door. So I might not be able to get the dishes all the way into the dishwasher, but I can get them off the counter and in the sink. I can pick up the pillows that were tossed off last night off the couch and put them back on the couch. So little things like that, because then when I walk back through the door, I'm not greeted by like mayhem. There may be other spaces in the house that are that way, but walking back in feels like a peaceful, because I took those like couple of minutes to make that possible. So
okay, you're onto something here, because when I walk back into my house, I walk right in from the garage into the kitchen and see
a mess.
I taught my son to clean up and at least get his dishes in the sink or in the dishwasher, but I have not taught him to wipe up the crumbs. And
yes.
So how to cook, there's like crumbs and powder and
yes. And that's where, like, I try to tell people, like, decide what you're going to fight for and decide what you're going to let go of, because you can't have it both ways. So for me, that means I fight for like my kitchen counters, and I let go of my kids' rooms. So they're not like complete disasters in my kids' rooms, but I don't spend a lot of time in there because those are their zones. And so if they want to have Legos everywhere, not so much anymore because they're older, but if they want to, whatever, like that, my daughter likes to do art projects. And so that her walls are covered with art stuff. And that would make me stressed being in there, but it's her space. So I've let go of that. But the kitchen counters, for me, that's something that I fight for. So you can't have it all. So you got to decide which things you're going to make a deal out of and which things you're going to let go of, and kind of establish that in your household. So, because if I'm going to micromanage and make everything an issue, my family's going to rebel. So I've got to figure out, but they know that I like the counters clean. So they tend to give me that.
Beautiful. What else? Give us another tool.
So I also believe that there's that phrase, clutter is no more than postponed decisions. Mm-hmm. So I truly believe that when we allow things to build up, basically we're just like postponing the inevitable. And I honestly think that you've made the decision at that point to have clutter. And so, so whatever you can do to avoid clutter and keep your home tidy, and that tidy is different than clean. And so you can have a tidy home. And when you do that, it's easier to have a hospitable heart. I am going to say something that I believe flies in the face of what our current culture is promoting. And I believe that currently we are promoting this kind of like, come as you are, to the degree that you sit on my couch next next to my pile of dirty laundry with underwear in it. And I just truly don't believe that anybody's comfortable sitting on a couch with someone's dirty laundry next to them. So
And underwear,
I
certainly.
so I think of our culture like in pendulums, that the pendulums swing. And I talk a lot about how I believe that we went from like rejecting the June Cleaver model, and we swung so far to the other side that we've said that like, oh, just your house can just be a disaster and everybody should just adjust to that. And I think there's some middle ground there. I don't think that we need to be doing dishes in pearls and high heels, but I also don't think that people are more comfortable when it's total chaos. I think we thrive in routines and some order. And so I think we got to get that pendulum to kind of come back to a middle point. But I know that's kind of anti the message that a lot of women, especially moms and stuff like that, are hearing. So,
Well, I can say that I try to think about how much clutter is in my office, and I have 7 offices here that we use because we are trying to do therapy, and so we try to control the environment so that it'll be
yeah,
therapeutic. So there's something to that.
absolutely. There is 100%. And I think, I have had people say, well, how does your family, like when you had little kids, how did they feel comfortable? And I said, if you have toys strewn all over the floor, but the rest of the background feels fairly calm, that's a beautiful thing, because I can relax and let the toys and the mess and all of that be there, because it's not just adding to what's already chaotic and messy. It's a piece that I know will get picked up at some point. So if your background and your foundation is solid and calm, you can throw in little things here and there that are maybe chaotic and crazy, and you can handle that. And
Beautiful.
so I think that's true of our hearts, and I think that's true for our homes too.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah, in our hearts, we can only work on one area at a time, maybe 2, and so we have to
Mhm.
kind of put the curtains down over the other areas. We can't have it all on
Yes,
the floor all at
exactly.
once.
Right, exactly.
Well, beautiful, Vanessa. Where can we find out more?
You can find me at thepicketfence.com. That's my website. And I actually have an awesome thing right now that I'm doing on my website where you can take a little quiz to find out what your piece personality tends to be. And then I have a free mini ebook with some really quick tips for how to have a more peaceful home starting today. Easy things that you can implement that everybody can do. So that's at thepicketfence.com. And then same thing for Instagram and Facebook, just at the picket fence. And we have a great time in those communities. So I'd love to see any of your listeners over there with me.
And can you tell us where to find your book?
Yes, my book is called Life in Season. Celebrate the moments that fill your heart and home. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, christianbooks.com. And it's a great price. It's hardbound. It makes a beautiful gift. It goes through all the seasons of the year with short stories and then home related recipes, crafts, projects that reflect each season as well. So yeah,
And you wrote that with your sister, is that right?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. My sister Heather used to write with me, and she stepped away from doing that a few years ago. So now you'll just see me, but it was an amazing experience to get to do that together. So
Yes.
yeah.
Well, thank you for being with us. I don't know about you, but I'm thinking about my kitchen counters. And I'm also thinking about the bag of books. I love books. I love to learn. I'm a geek when it comes to psychological stuff. And the bag of books beside my bed, and then the box, which has this like label stuff on it of books beside my bed, is a decision I've made.
Yes.
And perhaps I
Yes.
want to make a different decision.
There you go. Yes. And such a simple thing, like just to
Yes.
start with one thing. That's all you have to do. Just pick that one thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
I
it.
love it.
Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. And thank you, listeners. You know, I love you and I'm praying for you. And we love to talk about belonging around here. So it's been a great podcast. And I will be praying for you over this week, as you know. And I will catch you next week. Well, I so enjoyed my time with Vanessa, and I hope that you did as well. I love the overlap between creating belonging through faith plus therapy tools, which I teach on a lot, and creating a sense of belonging externally in your community and in your home. You know, when we create belonging on the inside of our heart, it is natural that we are going to want to extend that belonging. And how do we create that belonging? We create that belonging by connecting with the Lord God Almighty, the secure attachment, and then letting Him heal our hearts through faith plus therapy methods, and then extending that belonging outward. And part of that healing is in our relationships and in developing strong, healthy relationships. I also love what Vanessa said about having a healthy, enjoyable, peaceful home. And yes, we do need to make accommodations for the people who live with us, for those of you who have a family living with you or roommates living with you. But we can create a measure of belonging and safety and security and decluttering and serenity and peace in our domain. So good how the inside and the outside can both impact us in so many ways. The outside affects the inside affects the outside. And hey, are you on my mailing list? Make sure you go to drbarbaralow.com and opt in to my mailing list. You can also go to /free gifts to see the free ebooks I have. And make sure you go to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. That would really mean a lot. Oh, and are you catching us on YouTube? We now put all these interviews on YouTube. So you can not just hear, but watch me and my guests interact, or me when it's just me interact with you. I adore you. You are my treasure. You are my heart. You are why I do this. And I'm not going to stop because God has given me such a heart for you to literally chase you down with love, belonging, and acceptance. And I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop loving you. And I'm not going to stop emailing you messages of love and sending out these podcasts full of love because you really, really are my treasure. And I cherish you because you're His treasure. I love you, and I'll catch you next time. You know I will. I'll be praying for you until then.